We're good? All right. Well, thank you so much. As Lauren said, my name's Peter Dale, and I'm at the National. It's downtown Athens, which is a few blocks from the university. And we're really fortunate to have a lot of farms right outside of town. So we have almost daily this time of year farmers coming to see us. And one of the things that they have a lot of is eggplants. And you may have seen a lot of eggplant here at the market, or if you are in a CSA, your box is probably going to have eggplant probably until October. So what do you do with all this eggplant? So that's a question that we frequently come across. And one thing I like to do with it is and with any of the vegetables that we have or fruit in abundance, is preserve it in some way and use it later on when we don't have as much. So one thing that we do is a confit. And confit is a French term, and it means basically, imagine in your castle in medieval times, and you had some meat, for example, but no refrigeration. And maybe the black pepper had not arrived yet to sort of season it. So you needed a way to preserve this meat. It is the traditional thing that you would confit. So basically you would cook it, and then you would put it in some sort of vessel, and then you would cover it in fat. And then that layer of fat across the top would preserve traditionally meat. A lot of times you'll see duck confit, like the duck leg and thigh. That's very traditional in a French bistro. And so it's preserved in the fat. Nothing's really going to happen to it underneath all that, with that layer of fat protecting it. And then because it's been cooked in that fat and preserved in that fat, the meat, or in this case, the eggplant, is going to be really rich. It's going to sort of soak in all those fats. So and these are like healthy fats. These aren't, no trans fats. This is the good fats. I was talking a few days ago with some friends about how years ago we all wanted low fat, no fat, Snackwell. I don't think they make Snackwell cookies anymore, the no fat cookies. Now we're all about healthy fat. So the meat or whatever it is that you're confiting is just really tender and flavorful and juicy because it's been hanging out in fats. So the eggplant we're doing is, because eggplant don't have fat of their own, like duck, you would traditionally put it in duck fat. So we're going to use olive oil to cover it up. So a lot of people want to know about eggplant, and there is the school of thought where you would salt the eggplant to extract the bitterness. And so you can certainly do that. I have actually never really found that does a lot. But if that's your method, please continue to do that. But generally I've found that just slicing it up, I think that just with really good eggplant, you don't need to take that extra step. So maybe if you bought an eggplant in January, maybe it'd be more bitter, and maybe you shouldn't buy it anyway in January. But anyhow, right now, I mean, this was probably picked yesterday, and these are beautiful. So I don't think you need to do anything with this. So the first step. The other thing is with cooking the eggplant. The only some people salt it. The only time I would really sort of do a sort of salting method would be if I was going to fry the eggplant, and actually I would brine it, which means I would just take some salt, basically salt water, and taste it basically like ocean water is what you'd want, and take your eggplant slices and soak them for about 30 minutes. Maybe set a plate on top, just on your counter, and then drain them really well. And the reason to do that is eggplants are basically a sponge, and so if you fry them, and you may have done this before, they're just going to soak up all the oil. And maybe you're making eggplant parmesan, for example, which is already a rich dish. And so you don't really need the eggplant to soak up all the oil, or you're just going to have just a really greasy finished product. So what happens is when you brine it and you're soaking it in the salt water, the eggplant is basically soaking up the water and the salt, and basically it doesn't soak up quite as much of the oil when you're frying it, because it's already sort of saturated with that salt water, and then you've already sort of pre-seasoned it, so you don't need to salt it as much in the finished product. So that's the only time I would sort of take an extra step with eggplant. But this method is really, this recipe is really forgiving, and it kind of depends on what kind of eggplant you have. So we've got these nice sort of bigger Italian style ones, and I'll kind of peel back the stem a bit just so that I can get more of the good flesh. And I'm just going to cut this top off, and I'll cut the bottom off as well, and then I'm just going to peel it with a vegetable peeler. Now, if you have you ever seen the fairy tale eggplant, which are the really tiny little eggplant? Those are wonderful for this as well. And with that, I would just, imagine this was, 1/4 of the size, I would just take little strips down the sides. I wouldn't peel everything because it's so small. During this process, it would probably just completely fall apart. So I would leave a little bit on. But this guy is a bigger one. It's firmer, so I'm not going to worry about that. So I'll just peel everything. All right. So, and then these are a lovely Japanese eggplant. And so this one, you could peel all, or actually I'll leave a little bit of the skin on this one, just to show you can do this in different manners. So if you just kind of take little ribbons, and then it's actually, pretty attractive in that way. So, slice a little bit. I think we're looking for about a 1/2 inch round. But really you can do any size that you'd like. And then like I said, if you've got the really tiny baby eggplants, just leave them whole. You could even leave the stem on if you'd like. And then I'll take the big guy and just do nice rounds. All right, now over here I've got some water that's kind of simmering. And so this is maybe not a very traditional step with eggplant, but so what I'm going to do is add a little bit of vinegar to the water. So while this is a confit, it's also a little bit of a pickle. It's got a little bit of acid to it. So we're adding about 1/2 cup. So this is 12 ounces. We're going to eyeball this a little bit. So that's probably about 8 ounces. And then also, the recipe doesn't mention it, but I'd add a little bit of salt to the water. So let's give it a little bit of a stir. And then basically you're just going to add these eggplant slices in the water. And you're just going to cook these just until they start to get pretty tender. I think may have lost some of the power here. So the water's warm, but it's not quite as warm as we'd want it to be. But we're just going to cook this until you don't want it falling apart, or else it's going to be pretty messy. But you want it to cook, they're still holding its shape, but they've turned a little bit darker. And so we're just going to let that hang out for a little while. So next is going to be what we're going to add, the seasoning that we're going to add to the eggplant. So because we're in Georgia, I love using pecans, but traditionally in the Mediterranean, you might use almonds, hazelnuts, you could use pine nuts, whatever you happen to have on hand. These are just roughly chopped, and so we've got this nice mixture here. The other thing we want to do is add garlic. And so I've got some beautiful cloves of garlic here. And if you have a mortar and pestle, this would be a great time to use that. But I'm just going to use the side of my knife, give it a smash. And then I'm actually just going to start chopping. And then in a minute or two, I'm going to introduce some salt. And the salt is going to help break down the garlic, and we're going to create a bit of a paste. But again, if you had a mortar and pestle, you would just add the garlic and the salt and just mash away. And think about everyone who's annoyed you in the day, and just get rid of any aggression you might have, which is a great way. Oh yeah, thank you. We don't want that. All right. I may have turned off. Yeah, barely on. I may have maybe out of some of the gas. So, um, let's see. We'll add some new gas to it.
In its little there.
Perfect. There we go.
There you go. It's hot.
All right, Lauren saves the day. Thank you. I'm sure this is. All right.
I'll take that bet.
Okay. All right, so I just added the garlic, and I'm just gonna keep chopping, and then using the side of the knife to sort of smash it. The other thing we're gonna introduce to this is oregano, which is lovely, and there's different, sometimes you'll find a really spicy oregano, which would work as well, and also chili flakes. And if you have a really spicy oregano, you can limit the amount of chili flake that you're using. So this is just about where I want it. The reason we really sort of want to paste is that just to make sure that it's every bit of the eggplant gets covered in some of the garlic flavor. If you're not a big garlic fan, you can go light on this. You could also do maybe a little bit of diced onion. You could do, and then you feel free to improvise. If you have a jalapeno and you do like spicy, some thinly sliced jalapeno would be great with this as well. All right, so we've got our garlic mixture there. And then if you like things, I go a little bit on this. I sort of undersalt it just because you can do a lot of different things with it. So I don't want to sort of commit to a lot of salt, not knowing where the final product might go to. So, but if you know that you like a little bit more salt, you could introduce that at this point. And then I've got some of the oregano. I'm just going to roughly chop, and we'll add that in as well. Pot. Thank you. Yeah, you could definitely use basil. I think fresh thyme would be wonderful. And actually with thyme, you could chop it up. You could also just put the whole sprigs in. You could do rosemary. I would probably just put the rosemary sprigs in rather than chop it, because rosemary can overwhelm things a little bit. We're actually going to garnish this with some mint, which would be lovely as well. All right, so I've got the chili flake here as well. And at home, you would measure this all out. And so we'll just give it a stir. And if you'd like to make things a little easier, you could add a little bit of oil. And then one thing that that we have that's really wonderful is the pecan oil that Oliver Farms is doing down in South Georgia. And so I'll just add a little bit. That's not in the recipe, and it's not a requirement, but I'll add a little bit of oil just to kind of bring it together a little bit. So I've got this mixture: the garlic, the nuts, the chili flake, oregano. But again, other herbs would be wonderful as well. So that smells. Can you all smell that? Yeah, cool. What's that? Uh-huh. Yeah. That's a great idea. I'm sorry you don't have one either. I'm sorry I don't have one. That's a great idea. All right, so the eggplant is cooking a little slower than we had imagined, but maybe just to sort of, for demonstration purposes, the next step would be imagine that this eggplant is cooked. It's tender, but again, it's not completely falling apart, or else you'll just have like a gloppy mess. But what happens at this point, we'll just, either with a slotted spoon or whatever you have around, take out the eggplant, and we're going to set it in this in a colander. The recipe says 30 minutes, but if you can go longer to drain, that would be preferable. And the reason for that is what we want to do is have the eggplant absorb a lot of the oil and make it richer. And so by letting it hang out in the colander, it's just gonna, sort of the water is gonna all drain out. So again, 30 minutes minimum, but if you can go longer, you could even set it in your refrigerator. If you've got a lot of space in your fridge, kind of cover this whole situation with plastic wrap and let it go overnight. That would be, the best. And just to let all the moisture drain out. So at this point, we're really ready to sort of set up the confit. So you probably have a more attractive jar at home, something, antique and beautiful, but something like this works just as well. And so what I would do is imagine these have drained for 30 minutes or longer, and I'm just going to take the slices, and if they're still warm, that's totally fine. And the reason for that is warmer things, accept marinades and flavors better than something cold. So if it's still warm, that's totally fine. So I'm just going to layer this on the bottom. And if you've got different sizes, that's fine. And if you've done the little baby eggplants and you have whole eggplants, that's fine. Just sort of make a little layer. And then with this mixture, just going to put little dollops, or you can just sort of spread it out. And then you'll just repeat with another layer on top. Yeah, so the question is how long this would hold. Actually, if you put it in the refrigerator, it'll last for probably 2 to 3 weeks. But if you left it on your kitchen counter, especially as warm as it is right now, I would just leave it a couple days. But yeah, in the refrigerator, it'll do well for a little while. And that's what's nice about this, is that you can then keep it in the refrigerator. And this is really versatile. Like, I might not just take this out and just eat it by itself with a spoon, but what I would do is I think it would be a great accompaniment to lamb chops, for example, or, there's wild salmon right now in the market. This would be really lovely spooned on top. If any of you eat a lot of grains like quinoa or wheat berries, farro, and I think what's wonderful, a side dish this time of year is a cold grain salad. You could add this eggplant, and it's already got sort of the oil and some of the vinegar, so you would just toss that with your grains and have a lovely salad. You could tear in some basil leaves, maybe some feta cheese with whatever grain or rice even, and so you'd be all set. So then just layer it and add some more of the nuts, and then we'll introduce the oil. So this is the opportunity to use just a regular oil. Don't use your really fancy finishing oil for this. Just a all-purpose. The olive oil that you use for sautéing would be perfect for this. So I'm going to slowly add the oil. And if you've got this container filled all the way up, invariably there's going to be air pockets, and we want to eliminate the air pockets as much as possible and replace them with oil. So add enough oil to cover, and then I would let it sit for a few minutes, because what's going to happen is the eggplant is going to settle, the air pockets are you'll see little bubbles. And actually, from time to time, I would just walk by and just sort of give it a little tap, and that'll allow some of the extra air bubbles to come out, and everything will sort of sink and settle. So if you could sort of leave it on your counter for about 30 minutes, move on to another project, and then after about 30 minutes, give or take, everything's pretty settled, then I would add another maybe half inch or an inch of olive oil to fully cover the eggplant. And at that point, put a lid on it, and I would just put it in the refrigerator. And so what we finished here is I can show you, this was a big batch that we did, and we've kind of stirred it up to serve it. But we have all the different layers, the eggplant, and then there would be this nice layer of olive oil on top. What I really love about this is that all this olive oil now has the eggplant flavor. It's got oregano, garlic, pecans, chili flake. It's got really great flavors. And then when you finish with the eggplant, there's going to be all these little bits of garlic and the pecans do not throw that away. This would, sort of a ready vinaigrette for your salad. You might want to add a touch more vinegar or lemon juice, but you've got, all these wonderful flavors and all this olive oil. And so this is a good opportunity to use an inexpensive olive oil and really upgrade the flavors. And so you've got sort of 2 in 1. You've got the eggplant that you've eaten, and then you've got this great vinaigrette. So to taste, and today we've got these really great sourdough crackers that Lauren introduced me to that are here at the market. Again, you could do anything at all. You could, I think it would be great with like on top of maybe a bruschetta with sliced tomato and mozzarella and some of this spooned over the top. But we've done these crackers, a little spread of Greek yogurt, the eggplant, a little bit of mint. I think we've got, quite a few ready to try. So give it a taste, and I hope you enjoy it. Again, my name's Peter Dale, and I'll be here for a little while to answer any eggplant or other questions you might have. So thank you so much. Yep. Sure. Mm-hmm. You mean just to have it whole on your table? I don't know. I don't know that would do. I don't think it. Yeah, I think it would. And honestly, it'll only last a few days, especially like as warm as it is right now. I don't know that the oil on the outside of the skin would preserve it, especially much better than just having it out. So, sure. Good. Are there any eggplant haters in the audience? We occasionally find you're an eggplant hater. Okay, you're an eggplant hater. You're a reformed eggplant hater. Good. Okay, good. Good. I'm glad. So eggplant, like I said, it's fundamentally it's a sponge, and so it really just can accept whatever flavors that you want to add to it. So it's really sort of a blank canvas. So use that recipe as a template and add whatever you happen to have around, by all means. So, good. Yeah. So I know that there's a lot of eggplant at the market today. Yeah. Well, good. I believe so. Yeah, and they along with Serenbe contributed the eggplant. So I'm not sure which came from which, but yeah, good. Yeah, so, and honestly, like this might be more than you want to have at home, but a mason jar would be really nice in the fridge. We made this 2 days ago, so we made it Thursday. The longer the better, and honestly, this would last at least 2 weeks, and sort of by the end of it, the eggplant, by the end of, if you have it that long, it's starting to fall apart. And at that point, it might be really great to put in like a grain salad where the texture isn't quite as important. So, yeah. Well, good. Thank you. Well, good. I'm sorry you don't like eggplant, but I'm glad you like this one. Good. I'm glad. Well, thanks for coming by.